I have
He has polio too.
Always Sunny Season 2. We open with a down the pint race. Mac loses. It's pretty amusing how Dennis and Dee are united in fear of Frank's imminent arrival. Enter the one, the only Danny DeVito as Frank Reynolds. What sort of monster pulls a mother's dead fake out? Just like that, the business tactic of keeping Sonny on the air. Did Frank believe he'd give his money to charity? Olsen Harton's reaction here is act perfect. His moral character's in the gutter, sure, but so are his new support group. Confession time. By the end of season 1 I was in love with the Sonny chemistry and, truth be told, resistant to DeVito. It's a testament to all how much season 2 hasn't changed, how it still feels like beloved vintage. DeVito is magnetic and repugnant. Frank version 1.0 is eased in with the trad Sonny welcome and will devolve further. The production of this episode devotes itself to sticking the landing of the theme. Charlie locks into the sympathy vote. The pitying tone of the strippers is well delivered. Good casting in Natasha Leggero and Sarah Erickson. DeVito does lascivious so well. Dennis doesn't believe Dee should be looting, a belief rooted not in sibling rivalry but in raw sexism. I love Harton's delivery of tiny little car. Peter Smokler's cinematography is well thought out. This shot of Frank using a bra as a starter flag, the frenetic energy of the race, like an inverse of the scene from The Shining. Can play with this, Danny. Charlie and Mac in the hall, some vintage season 1 vibes. They're breaking Charlie's wheelchair for a part to flip in lieu of a coin. With so much going on, barely a minute is given to a clever subversion of the TV trope, "This is my side." Rest in peace, Mr. Tibbs. Frank gives Charlie his pitch for moving in, and TV history is made. Mwah. Real writing work by McElhenney and Co. was put into Dennis. The FDR look indeed. Disability awareness is not Mac's strong suit. Mac, as the gang's prime lunkhead, gets tiring on Overwatch, so is the most suitable for developing many incarnations. Dee is one step ahead, quite literally. It's easy with the glamour of DeVito to overlook just how much this episode is on point in sustaining the theme of pity thieves. Bankrolled by his new facilitator for shenanigans, we're introduced to Charlie's love of costumes. He's going in as a war hero. Oh my, is that an early Serpico back there? Wonderful bait and switch. Except being Charlie, he commits to the role. Dennis and Mac are cruising the mall when ideologies clash, settled by a chaotic wheelchair race where Mac is a sore loser. Dwelling on Caitlin's slow stagger away is just hysterical. We find Charlie outplayed by Frank. Frank has his deluxe modelled pity and money. The strip club fight is interspersed by showing us how Mac and Dennis have buried a hatchet. The driving scene is filmed with a series of single shots establishing both are drunk maniacs. Then, as two fast pans across the dashboard, relaying the size of the vehicle, the second showing they are asleep, then a sustained double shot right before the gang get crippled. And we end with Frank looking briefly to be the voice of reason. Oh, that's not going to last.
You think we can make this look more like a cave?
It's crass, sensationalist, and I love it. With the line about doctors 15 seconds in as a keeper. The garden cheers, Dee's brace, good demonstration of Sonny's ability to pile several jokes on top of one another. Talk over arguments of a tune, a sort of song of Sonny. Often memorable reactions like Israel's tsunami superdome thing. Who is the gang? Only Dennis knows about the gang, hinting at his paternalism and want for control over others. There's an implication. And this quarrel slyly sets up the episode's discourse on borders. Josh Stamberg as Artie Frankel. Artie Frankel is a protagonist and is really occupying Paddy's pub, not Palestine. Ballsy and correct, I'm surprised the 2006 network let this fly. Gonna need you out of here in a week is a bit unrealistic, but we're not watching The Wire. It's fun and silly and low down. Frankel gives a timely reminder about America's colonial machinations. Maybe it is The Wire. Now, a grilled Charlie is peanut butter last, peanut butter outside, chocolate inside, butter inside, cheese outside. Introduction to Frank's wife Barbara, who enters like a spark of lightning. Anne Archer's remarkably fun to watch. Charlie and Frank matching sweatpants. Their high-fiving gives us a slam dunk on their chemistry. His accusations of Mexican women and deportations show us, despite her outward glamour, she's as much a sleazebag as the rest of her cast. And Charlie takes a slap for Frank. The man behind the desk reminds the gang they could have avoided the situation with Frankel quite easily. Mac extrapolates lawyers speak to mean something entirely disconnected. The eyeballs and hand gestures are flying in this scene. The men get into whether it's Jew or Jewish, which is racist. Mac and Dennis, so knowledgeable, bring the war in Iraq against Israel and Osama bin Laden into things and are roundly mocked deservedly by Charlie. Deandra's neck brace or her earrings? Bait and switch motif of weighing something difficult against a petty. And this little dog has the most beautiful eyes. The retarded person stuff doesn't age so well, and is that the point? However you feel it sells the gang's rottenness. Notice how Danny has been sidelined from the A-plot for most of this. It's a structural decision, making sense for character development. Toilet paper on the building, a child's top 10 prank. The set decorator Lisa Tong has really gone to town on it. And the little details of Mac's hat as well. Dennis drops a hard J. I love how the creative team shine through, using the characters to have a conversation about politically correct terms. It gives our scum protagonists a moral dimension, absurdly gilded with an assenting revenge plot. Barbara gets shallow grandstanding. DeVito invests slapstick comedy into petty revenge. Olsen as well, her tone and eyes all malice, believable as Barbara's daughter, so in a way Anne Archer helps with the reboot of Dee, or Deboot. The gang's two black sheep, in this iteration, embark on a course of dog theft. The madness of Paddy's sign language, PSL if you like. Per usual, the gang can't just agree and not argue mid-action. Even in Longshot, Olsen and DeVito's high levels of slapstick are on show. I got a big grin from Charlie's explanation for buying organic eggs. It's not that they're particularly smelly, it's the luxury and the specialist feature of the eggs, which will let Frankel know they mean business. And he put up a fence. Crack an egg analogy all over me. DOP Peter Smokler shoots us with bodies out of frame, off-kilter cropping. It looks clumsy, shows panic. Frank pitches D team-ups as something that feels like he's doing a lot. Frank's line about Mac being stupid enough to do anything makes me giggle. Later he'll discover Mac is too weird for him. And then we get the Jihadi video, guttural sounds, subtitles, a weapon, Charlie getting really technical, Dennis having one of his freakouts.
I'm gonna get a weapon. Let's go get a weapon, everybody. Everybody get a weapon.
I really enjoyed Mac's threat in English descending into a high prepubescent pitch, and viewing the tape back gives the gang a taste of remorse. Charlie nabs a VHS out of director's pride, though it may seem like holding a plot stupidity. Sonny requires this suspension of disbelief. Stupidity. Throwing poop. Look how close this debris comes to Charlie's face. Later we get the gang's first group song. Frank buys a bar and threatens the gang with jail, and becomes captain of the gang. This sets up the power dynamic for the next episode, the twins versus Frank's gang. The cops show up. Looks like the gang are threatened with jail after all. Sorry, Frank.
Hi, I'm a recovering crackhead. This is my retarded sister that I take care of. I'd like some welfare, please.
So we open with the Reynolds kids taking a pop at Mac and his dad. Frank's in charge and the gang are divided, and another use of the title card for comic effect. This one is a classic. I have a fondness for Dennis and Dee's team up stories. I laugh cheek to cheek at their intentions to fulfill their ambitions. Frank has his office now and is wont to be a father figure. Then we get to the perch, undoubtedly the most iconic scene in Sonia ever. Dennis tries to be composer to their out-of-tune singing, cans and brown paper bags. Mac becomes the authority figure and voice of reason, which by itself is hilarious. Dennis has a new watch, Dee has a Jesus chain, fake tears. Mac is right, but he's the closure of hope.
It's reserved for people who need it, you know? Like poor people who need some help. It's set up to continue on. It's not for overprivileged pieces of shit who want to waste millions of dollars in tax. You want to play this game?
And the stereo returns, more dancing as it grows increasingly aggressive. This scene is a creative stew and still as good as it was the first time. One scene rolls out two driving plots: Charlie as accounts haven, Mac's plan for migrant help, plots masked with nonsense talk of vigs and slaves. Mac's ego soars, having pinpointed a means to exploit. I love McElhenney's exclamatory delivery. It's as if he's uncovered potential, removed now from Dennis's toxicity, now in Frank's business sphere. Frank version 1.0 has just enough mental faculty to be managerially dangerous with a deceiving self-consciousness. In the employment office, Mac and Charlie picking out workers. The employment officer, played by Aisha Hines, has a magic of her own, suitably shocked by Charlie's request for a worker Facebook. The two plots cross at the welfare store. There's another gold scene, and this still cracks me up. Is Dee a good actress, and who's holding her back? So Dennis and Dee buy crack, and a clash of cultures and Rowell's white privilege just cracks me up, pun intended. The crack dealer, Keith Bullard, is great fun, has that hint of menace. It's like a cutscene from The Wire. The slaves have arrived at the 30-minute mark. This episode is back-to-back A+ story beats. It can't get them out fast enough. Frank, trying to ingratiate himself with the boys. The bathroom. I don't know where to start with how gross out this is. Poor Maria. It's not done for any reason other than casualness. They don't know she's there. She's not even beneath them. Well, she is. More so, she's invisible. Just enough for a quiet night out. I love these party scenes. After crack, Dennis and Dee, knowing squalor and sickness, they're in Cricket's world now. Great makeup work by Michelle Buller and Leah Vautrot. Really, there's little in the Charlie and Mac get rich plot, but it's such a joy to watch these two rat boys go Bullingdon style. Good makeup on Dennis and Dee. So the prodigals return home. I love the eyeshadow. These two look screwed. For the third episode in a row, Frank settles the beef. I love how he comes down to promoting Charlie to management and dresses down Mac.
Because you are crackheads, children.
Patreon.com/Andy Luke.
I like my sex old and ugly.
A pleasure to Van Archer return and fun toupee waving. Suddenly lured me in when I browsed episode titles, and this is sharply skeevy. Charlie is the boss of the bar, which is subtly played on, but there's so much else happening in this episode. Dee and Dennis are charged with Charlie work, coin a phrase. Doesn't Mary Elizabeth Ellis look beautiful? Dennis has been grooming the waitress who throws herself at him. Already he wants her to wear more makeup. This parallel betrayal elevates the story to another level. Is this the worst thing Dennis has done to another of the gang? Oh yeah. Charlie hard at work as a boss. Mac banging Barbara is his first executive decision. His conspiring with Dee has a few aspects. We rarely get to see Charlie in a position of power, exercising his Machiavellian schemes. Early Sonia has much more of the gang turning Judas on one another, divided loyalties and schemes within schemes. Gelinos, though it's unnamed here. Frank's date is played by Marcia Ann Burrs. Nearly of his age, she no longer conforms to his sub-standards. Jenny the waitress is Danny's daughter, Lucy DeVito, presumably a fan who encouraged Danny to sign up. Classy Frank, classy. As Dennis waits for Charlie's call, he's putting the Dennis system into action. We've got super villain Charlie. Ann Archer is hysterical as a corrosive bitch matched against a hopefully hopeless McElhenney. And Charlie shows a level of evil. Dennis has an interesting relationship with Charlie. He's something of a mentor with a quiet respect he'd never admit to. Does he recognise a kindred spirit? How much of his cruelty comes from proximity to Charlie's violent edges? More great pacing. This is our first introduction to Sandy Martin as Mac's mum. Grumpy stoic, bloodshot downs. Her and Howard are such a great pairing. Her gravel tones add to the deadpan delivery. It's such fun seeing her knock Dennis's vanity on its ass. And a stakeout. Dee and the waitress. Dee discards her from the car in that disposable manner. In my mind, the last episode of Sonia will come about through a civil war between the gang, each leading respective divisions of supporting characters, Game of Thrones style. House Dennis, Dee, Mother of Dragons. Frank's going clubbing with some mad dancing on show. Go for it, go for it. This is a fun aside.
Go for it. Go for it. Ooh, go for it. Go for it.
Subtly unsettling, Dee reports on Charlie forcing sex on her, and Dennis bemoans he's not getting any. Dee's refocus, how this is all because Charlie is Frank's number 2, brings Dennis to consider murder. The twins hate their father that much. So, the next iteration of Banging Moms. The speed train plot keeps moving. You can't waste an appearance of Lynn Marie Stewart, always a joy and crushing Dennis's self-image. A fun reprise of Vitriolic Barbara and Needy Mac. We get Dennis's car coming in the shot behind him, tiny attention to detail. Dennis and Mac rough and tumble reminds me of the college scrap in episode 1, and their grabbing and grappling with each other conveys pathetic nature better than any fists. Phase 3, no phase 4. Love Charlie's absolution here. And then the bomb. The waitress is just as horrible and screwed up. Poor Charlie, gut punch. You can't help but feel. Magic performances all round. I would tear through all this cardboard if it meant getting to patreon.com/Andy Luke quicker.
Oh, I have an idea, Dad. Why don't you shut your fat little monkey face and hold the bag? I'm gonna paralyze this bitch.
The gang are walking back from the movies and get mugged. Or rather, Dee does. The mugger's disgusted. Cue credits. I've never seen $1 Million Baby, but that doesn't matter. How far could you pull a snowmobile? Deandra wants to learn self-defense from Frankie Fast Hands. Frank calls the guys on their street shit and underground fight clubs, inspiring Mac and Dennis to satiate their fix. Frank and Dee in the smell of feet. Frank's nemesis, Bobby Thunderson. Eddie Mecca marks his presence with flamboyant shouting, that irritating Woody Woodpecker laugh. I like his sidekick too, a silent part. His physical performance conveys a loyal ring veteran and lurch-like character. Frank proceeds to give Dee the worst advice about lifting weights, so it's little wonder teenage Dee ended up in a neck brace. Charlie's shoulders are part of the grooming by Mac and Dennis, arguments about the composition of wood and the value of alcohol in training. Frank likes to be in control, and we see the father-daughter trait of a dog with a bone. Katie Chrysler plays a Jim's Kaiser Soze and drug dealer, credited as Shady Woman. I really like her physical stealth and voice. She could be a returning character. Chrysler's been a TV fixture, though only in roles of 1 or 2 episodes. Mac and Dennis call on Charlie with some iconic slapstick to build up tolerance to the beatings. Charlie's excited Scooby dance and more bashing. Performance enhancing supplements, definitely not steroids, for Dee from her delightfully intimidating contact. Hello there, toxic masculinity. Dennis and Mac's demented idea of training.
I'm ready, let me eat her babies!
Sweet Dee is gone now, and on top of that, she stands up to Frank and succeeds in putting him on guard. Nasty Dee. It's an on-theme musical montage, part catwalk, part beers, part punches, part pill-taking, succeeding in moving along the plot as a montage does. Charlie's taking Dee's pills, Charlie's resistance, a lot of slapstick in a quick space. There's a lot of pill-taking and human bodies being smashed with furniture. Dee is on the phone, throwing a temper tantrum at Frank. The D-boot continues. And Charlie is pushed to breakdown. He's lost it. The darker version of Charlie is on parade, and he's a raw and terrible thing. Charlie plus fluids is a combo win. Blood, sweat and saliva. Mac and Dennis sign up Clown Baby and negotiate the finer points of the grammar. Dee versus Charlie on pills. Their face-off is sweet. Pity the innocent bystander. Charlie and Dee land in jail. What were the chances? They beat up the guy in front of the bar, so it must have been feral speed. Dennis easily appeals to Mac's overinflated ego, and the meth head discovers Dennis has a lot of money because the gang are jumping Judases. There are no depths. And then in the finale, Frank v Bobby, Frank takes lascivious delight in striking his nemesis until it goes tragically wrong for Frank in the usual fashion, a bloodbath from which he must flee. The tragedy is professionally choreographed, filmed and beautifully scored to go with the slow-mo. The music runs through the end credits, linking us to the last visual, Frank running away.
I'm not an alcoholic, actually. Yeah, I'm only here because I got a little drunk and I threw a flaming bag of feces into a building and I kind of burnt it down a little bit, you know. But I wasn't trying to burn it down. I was trying to make the place smell real bad and get rid of this guy. So this guy knows what I'm talking about. Let's play some basketball, right?
Amidst these scenes of the gang outside at a street cafe, they feel tangible, characters placed without borders. They're paying off their arson attempt by community services and sanitation duty. I like how Charlie thinks admitting to being drunk might lead the judge to treat him more leniently. Frank has turned the bar into a dangerous Vietnamese gambling den. Dennis tries to move against Frank, but Mac and Charlie aren't up for it. Charlie attends Alcoholics Anonymous. He burnt down a building a little bit and is immediately drawn into a verbal brawl with an old-timer and raiding the buffet. The waitress's alcoholism is revealed, a keystone to her character, which opens up her vulnerable side and Charlie's inroad. He has her number. Oh, he was so close. Mac, Dennis and Dee are coaching community basketball. Typically, Dennis starts with a racially profiled selection strategy of the children. When he's challenged, Mac and Dee, they try the same. The writers pair Dennis with the loser team. The winners are paired with Mac and Dee, whose conflict grinds him down. Dennis berates these kids or uses them as gophers. The comic sounds of flip-flops taking a lap. Mac wins by being a badass. Charlie has gotten to the waitress's apartment. He's got very dirty socks. "What's the action?" asks Frank, who gets right on in the next scene. He's still into father-son bonding. Dennis admits he's banged a waitress, which will have happened off screen sometime in the last 2 episodes. Frank chastises him for this. Dennis throws it back but doesn't mention how Frank banged a waitress. This could be read as episodes broadcast out of order, or as it occurs that neither he or Dennis see any hypocrisy in what Frank's done. Mac with his leather jacket and jean shorts, Dee in her yellow suit, which looks flash but also like a giant big bird. And Frank's got the gambling addiction. Charlie is showing off his exercise regime at the waitress's flat. Mac and Dennis teach the kids about the vital role pain plays in sports. I love how Frank offers Chris a bribe to take a dive. We get the waitress moving in on Dennis again, who uses Charlie as an excuse not to see her. What a hypocrite. Well, it works. Mac has the ducks chugging down Red Bull. Dennis arms his soldiers. Chris mouthing off to Dennis here is a short, snappy bit of fun. Dennis figuring out Frank's ruse, the waitress has an interruption demonstrating her uber affection and directing to the gambling Vietnamese, and the referee is drunk. The plot structure finds Charlie and Frank aligned again in their intentions. DeVito and Day have a real chemistry, a bromance in 6 episodes, even with one of these featuring the ultimate betrayal. The School of Dirty Tricks. This semi-montage is a fun piece of extended slapstick answering the question, what if the gang had children? Charlie is a wild card. He hurls out Mac and Dennis, who rumbles game fix, and everything here is the waitress's fault. And we get a swell closing credits video of the gang doing community service. This can't keep up with other episodes thus far, but has a lot of good material. I'd certainly love to see future episodes on the theme of repercussions for the gang. The gang go to jail any day, please.
I got the Lord, I got the Lord, I got the good Lord, it's going down on me.
This is one of my all-time favourite episodes. Charlie found some water damage and Mac has found a Virgin Mary, a sign, a miracle, a goddamn gold mine. Dennis never misses a chance for publicity and a fabricated backstory. Doesn't his face look fab? Eric Faulkner was a consulting producer on The Mick, Chris Romano on Blue Mountain Slate as a writer. These are their first and only Sonny scripts. Why? Frank is hustling, but he's only got $4. There's a number of first-timers in this. Mac's growing obsession with God at the fore. Writer's room step out David Hornsby as Matthew Mara, aka Rickety Cricket, beginning on a journey to lose more body parts than Preacher's hair star. And the lads are right in there to mock him. I love how even with the gang talking over one another, this bit plays out for 45 seconds. Victim of teabagging, everybody loved those photos. Mac saw some of them on the internet. And the quest for adventure comes even faster. Frank wants Dee to get Matthew to bless his stain, and Mac is washing his hands of all of it. Just a few lines of dialogue. Already we feel bad for Cricket. Dee made him do her homework, eat a poop hole, rejected him, and now she's back. Sweet of Sweet Dee has more or less been written out of the show these days, but there's something in her flightiness, pretensive naivety, honesty and flattery. Mac, the bouncer of Paddy's, clashes with Charlie over the moral high ground. He can change the world and offers Charlie the chance to be his Peter. I've seen a few hate preachers and shallow disciples in my time, and I've got to say Rob McElhenney nails this effortlessly. Mockery and criticism of religion on the TV landscape was very much a no-no at this time, with the likes of Swaggart, Falwell, Robertson, Copeland and others still carrying some political influence. Sonia is ahead in tapping into their tenuous relationship with financial accountability and the prosperity gospel. Sonia isn't out to offend a common Christian, it's very choosy about its targets. Dennis, who's fasting, and Frank set to recruiting Father O'Grady.
That's a brown now.
And then belly dance. The good Lord is going down on me. Black and white suits underlining the rivalry. Charlie Day steals the scene with his exorcism-style blessing. Is he the Messiah? It's hysterical. And pretty soon after he tells us he's gay for God. And old Mac is so triggered now. A Bible bashing is coming.
Let's go toe-to-toe in the Bible, bitch.
Ask and ye shall receive, sucker.
Dee is also in love with a man. And this is an Alpha D challenge at this point. I didn't realise until now how funny Charlie is lounged out on the pool table. His hustle is a too familiar attempt of preachers to create an analogy from anything. Moses would stand on a hot plate for God will bring him shoes. The crazy drunk priest is played by Jack Axelrod, unhinged and spitting. Charlie is getting power mad. Has he found his calling? Quite possibly. The performative nature of the preacher applies to Charlie's key skills of musician and director, and as usual the gang's machinations destroy their own opportunities. Cricket leaves the priesthood to marry Dee, and she gives him the typical Eurogate guy dumping. Then Dennis passes out. Mac proposes teabagging him, which Irreverent Cricket is up for, showing how far he's fallen in just one episode.
If you vote me, I'm hot.
Trivia time. Did you know Garbage Pail Kids creator and art director was Pulitzer-winning graphic novelist Art Spiegelman? In retrospect, the kids' repugnant deformities are very Frank Reynolds and thematic cousins to the Gross McPoyles and Gail the Snail. The gang are all into their ass-blasting radar. Frank demonstrates some savvy in getting out for the payday, highlighting how DeVito brings an extra generational flavour to the mix. Hillary Clinton hates freedom, says Frank. The gang and politics is a creative wildfire concept, also eerily prophetic given the falling standards of Berlusconi, Trump and Johnson. The gang runs for office. The gang can't set up their roles before fragmenting, and Mac loses his clipboard of power. Hub-overtising! Charlie demonstrates his savant to pitch Dennis, and Frank is out the door, his double cross coming back to him. Mac's damned idiocy of confidence juxtaposes for big laughs when he changes volume to account for imaginary listening devices. These union bosses are not typical straight men. Writer David Hornsby subverting the Sonny trope before it's off the ground, imbuing them with angry agency. Betrayed quitter comes crawling back, a political liability leading with the baby kisser angle and pram stepping, a total campaign in the ass. Frank sins with makeup and pimping out his daughter. Not such a tough man. Union nerds flip-flop Mac's plot trajectory with great mischief. Good nerd, bad nerd. Patrick Thomas O'Brien as Gary, Brian Fitzpatrick as Eddie. The characters are well fleshed out by now. Mac is a holier-than-thou complainer with bark no bite. Vanity-addled Dennis, who's great when teamed with keen amateur Charlie. There are questions about the futon and Charlie's writing skills. Gold scene. Harton's passionate read of Charlie's speech with mimicry and mockery, classic. Damien Young as Jack Stanford invited to check out the goods. Dee is genuinely drawn to Jack, aided by his steamrolling of Frank. Frank flops to Team Mac as quickly as it takes me to finish this sentence. Such speed of plot, packed in with comedy and commentaries on politics and media. Dennis reframes the encounter as kissing a girl a year younger, and it's played with conviction, so the smear doesn't enter my headcanon. We can imagine the conversation between Mac and Frank, their sheer awfulness, and perhaps infers Dennis's horrendous path as fueled by demonisation, or worse, that he is lying to Charlie. Political cloak and dagger in a shadowy parking lot, and Frank's brought his own cloak, and he's got his payday. The high-stakes drama has the rug pulled with the condescending line,
Who do you think you are, Jack? Bill Clinton?
What?
You're a comptroller. Did he tell you he had a wife?
No.
Did he tell you that, you goddamn whore?
No.
Skank Dee returns. Dennis refers to her as Sweet Dee.
Whoa, sweetie.
For the lulz, brave way to address the debut, and his offhanded way of dropping his key role in the very plot itself. 3 minutes from the end, we're back in the shadows, and the broken plot is efficiently reassembled in moves against Dennis, then smashed back in Charlie's face amid his assassin's dreams. And Mac is taken back inside for a chat about bribes. I wonder are these cops giving the union nerds a cut? Great episode. If you Patreon me, I am hot.
The point is that if Charlie took any time to study in school, he would recognize that the Constitution protects my freedom to blow smoke all over his face.
You gotta be.
The men debate whether Dee is a failure or a quitter. Enter Charlie with hot large rat news. Charlie work gets its first mention. A smoking ban debate. Dennis is smoking in a bar. That's what bars are for. Clarifying Frank's Vietnam record, rage and split. Charlie goes America all over everybody's asses. A make smoking history rally with actors, yes, but not real actors. But of course Charlie and Dee kick it down. Mac, Charlie and Dennis want a free-for-all, much like the flood that hit New Orleans. Dennis's fixation with seeing the process from librarians to wild girls is a solid indication of the sociopathic mind that lies beneath. Charlie offers Dee a level of autonomy in her scheme, so it's interesting that we see her lead with breathing techniques and yoga, and it's a perfect opportunity to satirise New Age thinking. Only Dee could back up the validation of breathing techniques by focusing on the negative attention people would give her. The simple deployment of a gong shifts the tone from freedom to the dangerous world of Frank's underworld. Sound direction here is by Jeff Clark and Chris Kellett, and it's absolutely key. Frank deploying the argument of segregation as a way not to isolate his skeevy gambling den. Dee's take on street theatre is ridiculously stripped of any props, not even a cigarette to offer Charlie. Sexual boundaries are all about context, and there's no more uncontext like the return of the McBoyles. This is a particularly noisy, shouty episode which sets up some great pauses for later. There's lots of nice minor notes in this, like Mac's suggestion Frank is having a lot of fun in the basement, and we just see Dennis with his little eye twitch. The gong is used for frequent reprise, conveying a sense of imminent dread in this free-for-all America. Charlie Day kicks down a little thing called rock, flag and eagle, and Caitlin Olsen, how does she maintain a straight face? Is built up to this in the sheer anger and frustration in his expression. He's summoning up so much aggression as he sings. Caitlin Olsen just has this turning head of cognitive difficulties trying to grasp what is going on. And we're still hung up on Dee's acting failure. Artemis Dubois. Convincing Artemis street theatre as a true venue of artistic expression belays a classy attribute of Dee as faker and con woman, which would have been an interesting direction to take the character, except she cannot act. And we're introduced to Margaret, who is a sternly serious woman and a fine addition to the McFoyle clan. I like how over the top Artemis has gone with her makeup, and Charlie screaming Attica man, Jack the Ripper of Rats. A few heroin addicts convince Mac and Dennis they've taken it too far, but it's really the McPoyle incestuous adventure that pushes them over the edge. Thesey Surface is the gorgeous actress playing Margaret McPoyle, and much is made of her small chest, which elevates it from being a rather base but not vulgar joke. Patriotism and the falseness of it is an element that rises again and again in Sonny. Here it really controls the soundscape and leads to Charlie's eventual rager, which sees him stabbed by Liam. With a final scene in a basement where Frank has gone full deer hunter and a man has blown his brains out, just is a jaw-dropping finale.
What in the hell is a MySpace page?
Mac alerts Dennis to pictures of this guy and his mom, which is pretty cheeky. We establish some key lore regarding Mac and Charlie's fathers. Dennis and Dee get a new dad. The continuity goof with Geno's. So taking Frank to a fancy place to behave himself. And he almost automatically steers the conversation towards incest. Enter Rad Archer, all invested in the incest narrative. Sister banging loud enough for the whole restaurant to hear. Archer and DeVito are easily into that volatile chemistry. Barbara revelling in the blasé confession of parentage. DeVito's restaurant stopping whore rant is just on a par with Charlie's later Santa gnashing. It's excellent. It's loaded with part gibberish, and you can almost see this fall from the table as a transition from Frank 1.0 to 2.0. And now we're introduced to Gregory Scott Cummins. Whatever you do, don't blink. Blink and you're dead. Lawther O'Donnell's cold, unflinched will become a staple, but here he's a little bit more menacing for being less passive. And he knows exactly what buttons to push. I love Charlie's cape here. It's very John Crichton. Frank browsing the internet with guns. Always Sully has always had fun with double entendres, and here Mac and Charlie are interested in getting hard. I love the unkempt little curls in Danny's hair here, and how his gun was reloaded in short order. Stephen Collins brings such high level of optimism and wonder to Bruce Mathis. This guy's a genuine social justice hero. Bruce isn't just a helpless official on the receiving end of the gang's pitches. He's a guy who just doesn't fit in their world, and that's such a much more interesting conceit. Dee and Dennis just can't comprehend the fact of him. Charlie is working up his bad new tattoo, which will reappear down the line. Lawther gives exactly the same advice on finding a target as Frank is given on finding a MySpace friend. Charlie and Mac are of course terrified. Bruce has offered the kids anything of his that they want, and Dennis isn't long on using his altruism to buy the attractions of a good-looking woman. We get a nice reprise from the burning building scene of gnomic hats. Charlie and Mac's assault on Bruce is a choreographed comedy from Mac's veering off to Charlie's just standing there and embracing the awkward pause. Charlie will slap some sense into the very weak Mac. Danny looks fantastic with the glasses and a hoodie here. And Archer's distaste in being in a hospital is emanating from the offset. And so, despite a handful of appearances, I think she's every bit as much a member of the gang, as she has no tact regarding a child who may be dying. She's actually worse than Dennis and Dee, and still not above scheming to get back in Bruce Mathis's good books, or stealing pills. And while the gang's petty bickering over acts of selflessness in a hospital are funny enough, the fact that they're wearing red noses while doing it is an extra layer. They want their home comforts of a proper temperature and a bite to eat. Dennis and Dee seek out Frank, who's dependable in his degradation, but he's not into being their dad anymore. And of course we always focus on Frank possibly being Charlie's father, but there's a lovely subtextual joke leading up to this. Bonnie doesn't even know where her son lives. I'm kind of sad that we lose Anne Archer after this, but what a fantastic set of performances from everyone.
I am not getting pulled into any sort of perverted sex talk.
It's not perverted. Banging your sister is perverted, Dennis.
I am not banging my sister!
It's all connected. Welcome to a retrospective of Always Sunny Season 2, where I'm going to make an argument for it being one long story. This will centre around the A plot, Frank joins a gang, along with B plots on Barbara, the fall of the waitress, Old Beef's Cricket v Dennis, the McPoyles v Charlie, and the Law v the gang, with the core theme of family. Rob McElhenney is credited as the director on episode 1. Glenn Harden explicitly saying on the Always Sunny podcast,
Dan Attias directed all 10 episodes of this season. Wonderful director, mostly known for drama, almost exclusively known for drama, which we preferred because we didn't like it when directors tried to make things funny. We found it made it less funny. So we just wanted somebody who could shoot a story really, really well, and Dan Attias was extremely talented, and we needed somebody who could pull off essentially shooting all 10 scripts as if it was one big script because we only had Danny DeVito for 20 days.
Yep.
And then it ended up being, what, 25 days?
No, I think he gave us way more than
30.
That. I think.
if you've seen one or two shows out of Prestige TV in the last 30 years, you know Dan Attias' work. Addy has brought his own vision to season 2, pushing it forward sometimes against the producer's own, notably in the case of Anne Archer's entry, and he lost that round. But let's start with 201, the gang gets crippled. We can speculate the gang's increased bizarreness as a result of concussion sustained in the traffic accident at the end of the episode. For sure, the debut of Danny DeVito kickstarts a series that's deeply interconnected. This leads us directly into 202, the removing of Charlie's cast of Deandra's neck brace, which is worn throughout. We also have the introduction of Anne Archer, a recurring linchpin in this series. Barbara is a daughter of SS officer Heinrich Landgraf, same spelling as oft spoken of John Landgraf of FX, a mean woman. We see the first flowers in the Charlie-Frank relationship. The fallout to the occupation problem sees Frank take ownership of the bar. On one side of the division are Charlie and Mac, firmly in with Frank as captain of the gang. On the other side, Dennis and Dee, taking the change of management personally. In 203, the gang goes on welfare, they cut their ties.
It's set up to continue on. It's not for overprivileged pieces of shit who want to waste millions of dollars.
Hello there, crack cocaine. Meanwhile, what Barbara can't find, Barbara can't get. Frank is bonded with Charlie, and he's placed in charge of the bar when he's not around. This imbalance in personal politics pisses people plenty to punch up performing power plays. Translated, Charlie is in power, and Dennis wants that power. Anne Archer returns with some metatext connectivity. 204, Mac bangs Dennis's mom. Dennis threatens to bang the waitress, which the internet says he did back in Charlie Gets Cancer. Dennis tries to bang everyone and their mom. Mac's mom is introduced here, blunt and cold, the very opposite of Charlie's mom. So what's being done is telling plot as it should be, through character. And Frank gets some seismic betrayal. The waitress is discussed for Dennis in this episode, and her lust for him in 206 is a continuity controversy. Good short article in the description on that. For the purposes of this deconstruction, I'll be dealing with the narrative chronologically as it's presented. 205. The Charlie-Frank split is dealt with by separating them for an episode as Frank seeks to reconnect with Dee and we learn more about his past. Despite what Frank did to Charlie, the gang don't have much sympathy for him. You might say Mac and Dennis's idea of healing Charlie is smashing things all over his body. 206. The gang gives back, introduces the Vietnamese. The gang's conviction for the arson attack in episode 2 leads to a sentencing of community service. We also see signs of Frank exercising his control over the bar. What happens there, and how Dennis is powerless to stop it, despite his appeal for a takeover to co-shareholders Mac and Charlie. They are still on Team Frank. It also addresses a theme of parental responsibility or guardianship. Frank still wants to do father-son stuff with his kids, so imposes himself on the game, manageably running a crooked book on it. The waitress is all over Dennis again. Alcohol? The audience and Frank learned the waitress and Dennis off-screen banged in 104. In reverse of 204, she's not disgusted by him but under his thrall. Her deference to him is enough for Charlie's rage to pivot from Frank to bastard man. 207, the gang exploits a miracle, is arc light.
Cats!
An old beef is settled. Also the first, only writing credit this season shared by anyone outside of McElhenney, Day and Harden. They're on all episodes except 208, credited solely to David Hornsby. Frank's generational perspective on politics, his experience, is a key driver for the plot. He's shown exercising his dominance. His actions give the gang some white-collar legitimacy. Again, Frank tries to bond with Dee in a strange way. And just like Mac bangs Dennis's mom, every member of the gang turns on one another. Status quo. Charlie goes America all over everybody's ass.
Nobody messes with the McFoyles!
Reintroduces and resolves a conflict between the McPoyles and Charlie. Their return as an expanded group gives us an interesting interpretation of family. As a major shareholder in Paddy's, it's unusual that Frank asks for extra rights for his gambling den rather than taking them. He is subordinate to, or consulting, Dennis and Mac. No, he's pitching for them to get behind him. And the finale, Dennis and Dee Get a New Dad, has a third appearance of Barbara, Anne Archer's final, though Barbara will be referenced in 10 or more episodes to come. Notable subplot in the on-theme introduction of Mac's father. The focus is the A-plot. Frank is truly one of the gang now, but last act twist, he ain't Dennis and Dee's dad. They want him to be, but status quo, he don't care.
I'm not into being your dad anymore. Don't want to be your dad.
But what of his affinity with Charlie? The finale addresses the 4 key vectors on Frank and his impact. division, cohabitation, reorganisation and liberation. Please like, subscribe and keep the comments coming. What other series would you like to see me cover? If you're enjoying the 200-second Always Sunny series, you can find a dozen new episodes along with tales of bad paranormal hunters, giant fish and wee gerbils on patreon.com/AndyLuke. Thank you to all my sponsors there. They make this happen.